Welcome to Bridging the Gap, hosted by Utah Behavior Services. I'm Shaylee Johnson, coming at you from CASP in Texas, and today you'll be hearing from our first-time CASP attendees. Let's get into it.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Rhodes. I am a board certified behavior analyst and the clinical director at our Brigham City office.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Sipp. I'm also a board certified behavior analyst. I am the clinical director of our Cedar City office.
I'm Peyton Hamrick. I am a board certified behavior analyst as well, and I am the assistant director at our Brigham City office.
And I'm Colton Pendleton. I'm an assistant director and a behavior analyst at our Cedar City office.
What was your favorite part of your first time at CASP?
I would say I really enjoyed the keynote speaker this morning. I thought she had a lot of good things to say in talking about not just trying to say, well, we're different now, but accepting that that was part of our past in ABA, and then trying, just like all other, medical doctors and all of them had past that we don't do anymore, like lobotomies and things like that. We don't do that anymore, right? But that wasn't part of our past. We need to accept it and then change our views going forward.
Mm-hmm. And I had a presentation on the assent-informed care later in the day, and she kind of expanded as well and talked a bit about how we need to get to a point in ABA where we're not so focused on that we aren't doing that anymore, and more focused on this is what we're going to do with this great science, and just get away from the whole we don't even do that anymore kind of thing, because that feels like so much of what we've become is oh, we don't do that, or that's not how it is. I'll be in initials where they'll well, I'm kind of worried about this, and it's yeah, we don't do that anymore, and it's so much of our conversation as behavior analysts. So I really like that idea of this is where we want to go, instead of always focus on this is where we were.
Yeah, I really like those things as well. To be honest, I feel like I had more of a fangirl moment in being able to see Peter Gerhardt. He does a lot of sexual education things that I've been working on a lot, and he's just done some of the CEUs, and I also got an insider moment too. He says that he's making his CEUs into a whole series to hopefully help and progress the field of ABA in sexual education. So I'm really excited to see kind of where that takes our field, and also my practice with my clients.
I think a lot of that goes back to the self-advocacy, the course that we were in, or the talk that we were in earlier, where it's self-advocacy is such a huge part, and so much of what ABA had been was compliance, right? And you just comply, and we teach a lot of compliance demands and everything like that. But if you teach a kid to always follow instructions, they're going to get in a tough situation where they're going to follow the instruction. So even just teaching them to be more able to advocate for themselves and say, I don't like this or I don't want this, is very important.
Right. Well, and I think one of the biggest pieces of is sexual education does not mean we're teaching people to have sex. We're teaching people about their sexuality in the sense of safety. So it's even something like basic hygiene, consent, kind of like what you were talking about, being able to maintain boundaries, and also be able to hold firm to those. I think that's really important. And just being able to I think Peter Gerhardt said it in one of my breakouts, but he said that if your child has less adaptive skills, there's a higher rate of burnout for parents, other than if your kiddo just has low skills but maybe high adaptive skills, there's less parent burnout. So when we think about adaptive skills, that sexual education and sexual health and just health in general is really important.
I think there were a lot of great things. I think an overarching piece that I really loved was just that nothing was super surprising. There was a lot of really great information, but that at Utah Behavior Services, we're pretty cutting edge for the treatment that we're providing. And we just have some tweaks or, different things that are, we're working on to provide better care. But it was just kind of a gratitude moment of where we work and just coming back to our values of, serving our families the best we can through quality care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Casey and I saw that a lot in our one-on-one to group setting. Yeah. It was really cool because it was the model she was talking about is so close to the model we already have. And it's just little tweaks will kind of push us towards that direction. So it's we don't even have to start from scratch, where I felt a lot of other people asking questions are they're trying to get there in the beginning. And it's like, it's cool to see that what we had built has already put us so close. And then we just need a little bit more to get us there, and coming up with some better ideas of how to make it work a little bit better than it's going right now.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I was in the caseload matrix breakout, and we have our levels of care, which is pretty similar to, help decide like number of hours or, and then we use our clinical judgment to determine, what amount of supervision. And they were breaking it down more into a matrix to have some more like data driven or, tool to drive those numbers. And I thought the same thing, that it's really close to what we already have, but including some of that information will just make it a stronger tool to help guide us even more.
Why was it important for you to come in person?
For me, it was, I love the field of behavior analysis, and it was another opportunity to kind of grow and see more of the field and those who like run some of the businesses that provide, some of the best services in the country. So it was something I really wanted to be at. We were already here, and, we already had the opportunity. So it felt like kind of like a no-brainer just to stay a couple extra days and experience it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Honestly, I really like the community in person. I feel like the only other BCBAs I know are either the few that I work with in the school setting for some of my clients, which I don't get a lot of interaction with, or it's all of the behavior analysts at Utah Behavior Services, which is great. But I know that there's so many different models and just different expertise out there. So I thought it would be really cool to be here, see the same people. Also, I think it's important for them to see us too. And so it was also nice as well that we were already here. And so that was kind of just a cool addition to our trip.
For me as clinical director, I just feel like it's important that I'm always like expanding my knowledge and thinking about how I can be better as a leader and how I can lead my clinical team better. In order to do that, I have to have the clinical knowledge. And so that's why I wanted to come.
I feel like my reasons are very similar. I did remember I attended CASP online during COVID, and I remember really enjoying that conference. And so I just wanted to come back in person and experience that. But I think also knowing that we had some of our own team presenting and wanting to support them as well and be a part of that experience to learn and grow and network also was appealing. And yeah, it was only a couple days more there.
Did you get an opportunity to network? Like, did you make any connections anyway?
I feel like we did a little bit, probably not as much as I would have liked. I probably did more with the presenters than with maybe connections outside. I know we went to dinner with some different individuals, but like with the presenters, I did take their contact information and we got to ask questions and things like that. And so I thought that was really helpful. But how about,
I did also think that was super cool that like a lot of the presenters were like willing to give you all of the information about whatever they were working on. Like, we have this really cool assessment, like just email me and I'll share it with you. So I thought that was really cool that they were so like open with all of the things they've figured out. I wasn't exactly expecting that, I don't think.
I agree. And I think some of them too, they were very open that this is not a perfect system and we want to collaborate. Or if you have something that's working better, please reach out, please take pictures. I agree. I thought that was a great tone that they set. But I also know some of you had great connections outside of the presenters too. So. Okay, maybe one of you. How about
I mean, I feel like I got a chance to meet a couple cool people, and I got some contact information for a couple people, and they had one of them was like a hiring process that we really liked. So Casey and I were really excited when she was explaining to us, and then connected with us, and it was like turning the hiring process into a behavior analytic kind of assessment, and like analyzing different behaviors and setting up the environment of the new hire process to like actually see the behaviors you want to see. Because I feel like that's something we miss. Like, we had an interview the other day and it's like, I feel like I don't like them, or I feel like I might like them, but you're kind of second guessing because you don't really have like the tools to say like they could do this, this, and this that I need them to do, or they fit these areas that we really need within our company, or they fit these values. this well or something like that. And that's what hers does, is it takes like the core values and a few other things. So that was a really cool thing. And yeah.
What are some key takeaways that you're excited to start implementing when you get home?
I would say my number one that I would say spans from like our first conference all the way through this one is just the communication that we use. I feel like that was a theme there. I had quite a few presentations, whereas a key theme here, it's like how you talk to them, how you talk to the parents, how you incorporate them into treatment decisions, how you collaborate with the parents. A big communication takeaway that I really liked from one of them was you're not educating the parents, because educating makes them feel less than or they don't have the skills, but rather you're giving the parents some of the knowledge that you've learned through school. Like, this is what I've learned, and I want to impart that onto you so you can use it as you need to, rather than I'm going to educate you because you don't have the skills or you're less than. So those like little things that was just all about how I'm talking to everybody, it really put a lot into perspective. So I feel like that's a easy thing to start with and begin upon, because I feel like it can make a big difference pretty fast.
For me, I think there are a couple of things, but the two talks that I feel like I got the most out of was, one of them was about like balancing the operations of how we're running things and also making sure that our clinical quality doesn't suffer, which I took so many notes for that. I don't even think I could tell you what is the biggest takeaway because there were so many notes that I took. But one that I went to today was about like burnout, and burnout is so high in our field. And so figuring out ways to mitigate that burnout and finding different routes for our clinicians to grow into. I mean, I think we have like a couple of ways that clinicians can grow in our company, but it definitely got me thinking of like trying to think of different ways that we might have them grow, because I do think that once you get a certain ways in the field, you're kind of like, is this what I'm going to do forever? And what are my other options, or how am I going to keep growing, because that is so important in our company. We have a huge growth mindset, and that's something they talked about a lot at this conference too. A lot of different companies I feel like talked about that. And so I've just been thinking a lot about that. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I did more of the track. I ended up picking breakouts that were more about staff retention or leadership development within our field. And so it was a similar mindset as you, Mackenzie. I actually talked with Shay about it as well, and she already has brainstorming, how do we have growth not only clinically, but also within our leadership and our BTs. I mean, we already have some of that with professionals and leads and mentors, but what else can we do? And so I think that's going to be a really exciting discussion and evolvement. But I thought it was interesting because they talked about not only vertical growth or promotion, but also laterally. And so I think it's great to think about that, because growth isn't just vertical, right? It can't just be, but there are other opportunities.
Yeah, and that's funny because Casey and I had the same conversation, and we all went different paths. So it's funny how the same
I think
things
some of
kinda
them,
come
because
around.
like the one that I went to referenced that she had done a previous presentation where she went more in depth with it. So I think that's the one that Shay went to. And she just like briefly went over it with us. But.
Yeah, because Casey and I were talking like how not everybody wants to go into like the people management side of leadership, right? A clinical director role or something, but they would like to be over like curriculum or this sort of intervention or something like that, and finding ways that they can grow more into those specific branches. But that's really cool.
I guess like back with the staff thing, I went to a breakout, and it was really cool because she talked about, we have our low performers, we have our average performers, and we have our high performers. And she asked all of us in the room, it's like, where do you guys spend the most energy? And everyone said low performers. And that makes sense, right? They need a little bit more of our help. But also, out of the three, the lowest performers have the highest turnover rate. The highest performers are second, and our average are good and steady people. And sometimes I think it connects back of like, sometimes people are okay not moving up the ladder. And I do think it is super important. And it was also just a good callback too of like, I do spend hours sometimes on some of the lower performers working on corrective coaching or even some of our performance plan pieces, when in reality, I feel like I still need to do that, but I also would really like to shift and maybe look more at some of those average performers or what it would constitute as average. Because I feel like sometimes too, giving them the skills and the appreciation they may not have gotten that before. So I thought that was kind of a cool perspective. And she had a slide that said, being average is cool. So
New motto.
I know, yeah.
I was in the effective conversations course, and he talked about something similar, but it was the high performers aren't ever getting any acknowledgement, and that could be a big part of it, because you spend so much time giving feedback in our job. We give so much feedback to those low performers. Those high performers, they don't know if they're even doing good. They're doing what they think is best, but they don't always hear it. So making sure they hear that they're doing well, and that leads to that turnover, because they're like, I don't know if I'm doing good, and then they probably start to spiral and get into this whole cycle of maybe I'm not and I don't want to be here kind of thing.
Oh, that makes sense. That's cool.
Yeah, I feel like that goes right into, I did one about Gen Z.
I was interested about that one.
Oh, it was so good. She did a very good job. She was a sociologist and also a behavior analyst. And so just hearing her talk about Gen Z from like how the environment shapes us, right? Like that really they've been in an environment where they really have not had to risk anything, right? They are taught like don't risk things. And so how much that inhibits maybe some of the other skills that maybe some of us who weren't part of that generation feel like you should just be a self-starter, like go do these things, problem solve, where they actually haven't been put into those opportunities. And so it is our job to help teach them, because now they're coming into our workforce. And so I loved that. I feel like we actually have seen a lot of positive, or had a lot of positive experiences with our younger generation of staff. But yeah, it was pretty amazing. I think that gives more understanding and maybe a behavioral analytic view between like, what can we do? What interventions can we actually focus on to really help them be successful? She was like, yep, you're going to have to write everything down. You're going to have to teach them how to problem solve. She had some really cool research about they're not going to Google to search often. They're going to TikTok and other things. And so what do you do, working through that? I was very impressed with the content she shared. Yeah. And I know that's a generalization as well.
Right.
I don't think we're not speaking for every person who is part of that generation. And she actually talked about that too, which was kind of neat.
Right. But we're seeing it more.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something good to be aware of and acknowledge and things like that.
Well, because employers say that, right? Like they don't understand, they don't know how to do that. And actually she said research says that they are some of the best self-starters. They are more than any other generation. They're motivated by achievement, and they need to hear that they're doing a good job, right? Because they've had that happen so much in their life. Not only at home through maybe how they were parented, but also school systems, and like the fact that, right, they are part of the generation that is standardized test heavy, and regardless of opinions on that, there is systems and things that they, right, would have learned through that and might not have been as creative or problem solving because of their experience. So anyway, it was just fascinating to me.
Like they've been taught there's a right way to do things, and that's what they're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they haven't received a lot of reinforcement for thinking outside of the box or for being as creative or taking risks. They actually they said that the average, like the year that they say that they consider themselves an adult is age 29. And so they are slower than any generation going into adulthood. The millennials were slower than like boomers, but they just talked about, right? And when you think about it, most of them were not buying their homes at 25, like a lot of us did. It was just when you looked at how much the environment was playing on their experience versus maybe some other generations, it just shed a lot of light into
No, and it's
things.
important for us to know, because the reality is a lot of our workforce is that age, right? With the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're leading them, so we have to be able to know how to work with them and communicate with them.
Yeah.
So that one I was interested in watching. I'll probably have to watch
the
it back.
recording. I thought it was really good.
Did they talk about any slang
Oh.
or abbreviations?
No, but I have you for that. So
Oh, emojis.
and probably Colton too.
What? No.
No.
I'm so out of the loop.
I have a 16-year-old sister.
I just learned other names for all sorts of things in the last 2 days. I didn't even know existed.
Thank you for listening to Bridging the Gap. You can check out more of our resources at utahbehaviorservices.com. You can also check out our socials at Utah Behavior Services, and we'll catch you next time.